Thank you everyone for attending today's 30-minute Wednesday webinar. My name is Mike and I am a systems engineer with Variphy and I am your host. I'm joined today by Matt Sykes. Today he'll be building a UCM admin-based wallboard or dashboard. But first, I'd like to mention our upcoming house party on October 27th. We had a blast this summer with the block party. Many of you probably have joined or attended, and now we're going to take it inside. With the house party, we'll be giving away over $5,000 in prizes. We'll have some live product demos and Q&A, some customer success stories. We'll take a deep dive into UCCX reporting, and we'll also go over our product roadmap. So you can register for the event at variphy.com/party. All right, so let's get started with the agenda. We'll get started with an overview of our company and what we do. Then we'll jump into a demo where Matt will build a UCM admin-based dashboard. After that, we'll wrap up with some Q&A. If you have any questions, you can ask them in the Q&A panel at the bottom right of your screen. Not the standard chat panel, but there's a separate Q&A panel. And after Q&A, we'll go ahead and reward one lucky attendee with a $50 Amazon gift card. So make sure you stay until the end to see if you've won. Quick overview of Variphy. We are the preferred analytics and management solution for Cisco collaboration. We provide industry-leading CDR reporting, call analytics, customizable dashboards, UCCX real-time wallboard reporting and analytics, remote phone control, macros and broadcast, change management, as-built reporting, DN, DID, and dial plan management. We have a few different solutions available, but today we're going to focus on the dashboards, wallboards, and widgets portion of the software. And before we get started, Variphy now offers Ninja Enhanced Consulting Services, or NECS. Well, what is NECS? Well, it's when one of our system engineers, like Matt or myself, will engage remotely on a one-on-one basis to provide additional consulting services. It can be anything from like reporting, dashboard configurations, to system monitoring. This provides a dedicated SE to you. We'll do all the heavy lifting. If someone needs a report or something built in the software, they can contact us directly, and we'll create the report for them. If you want any additional information, please let one of us know or speak with your account manager, and we'll be more than happy to go over our consulting service more in depth. With that said, I want to thank everyone for attending, and I'm going to pass the ball to Matt.
All right,
Matt, let me actually pass the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And you're off. Wait,
and
now you're off.
There we go. Awesome, fantastic. Thank you, Mike. And let's make sure I grab the right screen this time. Right. Okay, this looks like it's right. Let me pull this guy out of the way because little WebEx headers are always in my way. So screen sharing too. Okay, good. Welcome everyone to our weekly webinar here at Variphy. Today, we will, as Mike prefaced, we will be focusing on UC type admin dashboards, and that's where we're going to get started. So now, if anyone's worked with me or been on one of my demonstrations, they've probably seen this board that I'm showcasing right now. It's definitely one of my more frequent high-level boards that I utilize when describing all of the options within the analytics from a dashboard perspective. Very easily, we see statistical widgets. We see capacity utilization widgets, volume trend by time period widgets, as well as grouping statistical widgets, or what I call kind of leaderboard ranking kind of widgets. We can use those in a lot of different variations, as well as I have down below some distribution style widgets, and then more stuff based off of for hunt groups. But what we're focusing on today is type specifically solely for the UCM admins within the environment. Now the UC admins probably aren't really going to be caring about distribution within inbound traffic to specific departments or hunt groups and stuff like that. But there are pieces on my board here they will find very useful. Definitely some will be some of the more call statistic options that we have here, like the 911 calls, dropped calls, maybe gauging some inbound and outbound traffic, as well as definitely this concurrency utilization widget. That has definitely been paramount for customer usage during this pandemic this year. Let's see, I also can key off of the leaderboard for top cause codes, the trending stuff. I'm not really going to incorporate that for an admin because I don't believe that would be very necessary for them. So I do have a couple boards already pre-built, and we're going to dive deep into them. Some of these widgets that you see here currently will be on those boards as well, but we'll be digging into them a little deeper. So I'm going to pick on this one board that I have specifically for this webinar demonstration here, that I would, if I was a UCM admin, I would probably like to have this dashboard myself, maybe running on a on a permalink on a television monitor in my office or in the environment, or even on a secondary monitor of my own. Most certainly, we can see here, yes, once again, I have these call statistical widgets, but let's kind of drill into these a little further, because we can actually even make this a little more concise for maybe different groups of administrators. Now, this one I would kind of maybe say is maybe an admin kind of global board that maybe I would share out to my other UCM admins to maybe pick and choose some pertinent information for these widgets for the environment for maybe their own dashboards they can use. So let's take a look at some of the stuff that I have here. So most certainly, I'm looking at the call statistic widgets. We definitely are concerned with with 911 emergency style dials. So certainly, I mean, that's a pretty easy filter as far as recognizing that from the CDR, but as well as maybe then international calls. Are we placing our international calls being placed within the environment where maybe we didn't know that there was an allow for the users to be able to make those? So very easily, whether or not I'm using a site access code, I'm keying off of a lot of regular kind of information that we do. So original called party number on my outbound calls. I'm looking for with or without a leading maybe access code to get out, but I'm definitely looking at the pattern for U.S. international outbound dials. So very easily we can validate this information, but this is the construct for something as simplistic as a statistical widget that we're keying off of here. That gives me my count of 1 over the previous 30 days. Now, also, I have all of my widgets that you'll see here today. They at least should be keying off of the previous 30 days because, as a UC admin, you're going to want to kind of know how things are trending over a certain time frame, or at least a decent amount of time frame, not so much just current or previous week. Grab a little more data here to see the trends from an admin perspective. So certainly, we can see the call statistics. So we most certainly see those all the way over on the right here. We have call. This is definitely a good widget as well, because what we're utilizing here is cause codes. So I'm going to go into the search sets for this. I'm keying off the specific combination or bi-directional cause codes on the VoIP calls. I'm looking at a couple of specific cause codes here. I'm looking at network out of order, the congestion most certainly, and temporary failure. Those are certainly some of the high-level cause codes that we'll see that will result in drop calls that are happening in the environment. But don't get me wrong, if there are any other cause codes that we wanted to add into that bucket, there's certainly a nice library of them that we can select from. But these are the 3 high-level ones that I like to identify from a demonstration perspective. So of that, there's only 3 over the previous 30 days that have been notated as dropped within my widget here. Most certainly, any of these statistical widgets or any of these values that we see here on these UCM widgets, I can very easily validate them at a moment's notice within the analytics reporting ad hoc history search. So all we would need to do is just replicate the internal search set as well as the time period for these widgets in the ad hoc history within the analytics to bear the fruit or the granular detail actually of these counts. So most certainly we can validate these at a moment's notice. As we can see here, I do have a scrolling announcement of the day widget. So for instance, if I was a UCM admin and I had maybe some maintenance work coming down the pipeline for my UC environment in the next week or 2, we may want to make this more prevalent to the admins that that utilize verified dashboards to gauge usage and activity within the environment. So I threw up a kind of a sample there of a 12.5 upgrade for a DC center for Friday at 11 p.m. Okay, very well. That's obviously cosmetic. This can certainly be used, cannot be used, doesn't necessarily need to be, but is definitely available if needed. We most certainly have the concurrency widgets here. Now, obviously, we've done multiple webinars on concurrency and stuff like that. And you've definitely seen these concurrency widgets. But what I'm utilizing these for in this board is just to give the admin recognition exactly of individual routes within the environment. Now, whether these are PRIs or SIPs, H323s, most certainly we'll be able to extrapolate this information from the CDR and push it to the forefront here in a webinar. I'm sorry, in a dashboard. Very easily, we can see what the high points are on the y-axis over the x-axis time frame. I'm breaking this down by half hours of the day, as we can see on both of them. Obviously, one should be lighter than the other because my primary should be handling the bulk of all the traffic. Definitely have abandonment baked in here as well, but I also have a kind of a system-wide that I'm utilizing for abandonment over here in a call statistic, and we're going to get to that as well. But as well as abandonment, that's why I even threw in a couple more pieces for that as well. So I actually threw in a volume trend widget here so we can see what days, the previous 30 days, were we having a lot of abandonment? Was there something happening in the environment? Was there some type of service outages that we were unaware of? Well, certainly Variphy will bring this to the forefront here at a dashboard for you. very easily, and obviously updating on a regular routine. And then from there, I even went one step further and utilized a ranking or a grouping statistical widget to then identify the 73 calls that have landed on the users in an abandoned fashion. Obviously, these users didn't communicate and speak with the inbound caller, but we can definitely see that the call failed getting presented to them, and we can highlight them. I should have ranked this better from top down, but we can see what the abandoned average call time was. I'm sorry, the abandoned call average ring time. So we can certainly see the ring time. The abandoned calls obviously have 0 positive duration and are noted as a quote unquote a not connected call. So this is very good also to have on an admin style board, which is definitely pertinent information and very useful. Dormancy. I love the dormancy options that we have within Variphy. Now, whether or not they're hard devices, whether or not they're soft phones, they're IP communicators, they're Jabber clients using the CSF, or even the users themselves, I can get granular to the device, to the devices, or even the user that has either dormancy or maybe we'll call it underutilized devices or underutilized traffic on their username on their device. Dealer's choice there as far as what we would like to select on. I'm probably grouping top 50 here, but once again, this is a lab environment, so I have a lot of dormant devices. Hopefully in a production environment, you wouldn't have a list as long as this, but very easily we can pull these 3 very easily from the UCM CDR. We can validate any of this. We can even back all of this up with analytics reports, but once again, for today's webinar purposes, this is solely for admin style dashboards. All right, I will segue over to another ranking widget that I love to use, which is a top inbound dialer that I labeled this as, because what I'm trying to do with this widget is I aim to identify robo dialers or inbound frequency of people that are calling the environment extremely way too much. Now, pardon these calling line IDs. This is lab data, but this kind of gives you an example of being able to identify those external calling numbers that are calling in too frequently, and perhaps maybe trying to hack the system in the middle of the night on a weekend, something malicious with malicious intent like that could most certainly be deproductive to the environment and the company as a whole. And with that, underneath that, I also utilize a cause code ranking widget as well, because definitely on a lot of inbound callers, we'll see maybe a couple thousand of them over a relatively short time frame in the same number. Chances are there's some cause codes that the call manager is also flagging on those that we can help identify potentially, maybe if there is malicious intent. So as I kind of mentioned with that example, as far as maybe trying to hack the system and dial out to some international, et cetera, and we're kind of all familiar with those kind of scenarios. But the cause codes, now lab data here, so I don't have any kind of malicious looking ones, but potentially we had maybe there was like a lot of SIP 503 server unavailable errors that were here that were kind of that are being produced based off of this repeated inbound dialer calling frequently. Maybe they're hammering the system, maybe 100 times within a minute, maybe 1,000 times within a minute over the weekend. Certainly, we should be able to see some cause codes to maybe point us in the right direction to see exactly where the hack was targeting. That is good information as well. Once again, here's more statistical widgets. I'm looking at inbound traffic and outbound traffic, some high-level metrics with percentages on here. One thing, one widget I do have, I do apologize for. I just do not have any quality data in my lab. But for quality data, as far as those maybe MOS scores, concealment ratios, and stuff like that, that I believe Victor covered in another webinar that we have, most certainly that information can be uploaded into a widget on the dashboard as well and kind of give maybe top 10 poorest quality devices and then list out the devices for us so we can actually see those. So I guess I owe everyone something on that eventually. So we'll get back to that. But with this board here, okay, this is a very nice, good looking kind of good global admin board, but maybe it's a little too busy for, maybe my colleagues. Perhaps maybe they would just want bits and pieces of this. So I've got a couple of different variations as well. So maybe we don't need all this information. So maybe we only care about maybe call statistic information. Maybe it's a very cut, dry, quick, clean board that can be very easily utilized within the environment. That once it loads, it will reflect the counts that I have designated from these widgets. Utilizing a lot of the same kind of scenarios, 911 international, definitely picking on after hours calls as well, because if there is not after hours support, but there seems to be a frequency of, of call counts that are coming into the environment, definitely want to know about that. Dropped calls, we kind of covered that, but a lot of the same widgets that we just saw, baking them in here. So maybe this is very high level that can be put onto a monitor or a television screen via one of our permalinks, user or admin's choice, of course. We can certainly turn on the permalinks. We can obviously modify all the appearance stakes the font size, the colors, all that good pretty stuff. And then share the board out with others as well as the permalinks as I had mentioned. I will segue down here, which I believe I'm using all my grouping widgets here, or my leaderboard or ranking widgets as I call them. So we'll have the top inbound callers here. We'll have the top cause codes, the abandoned users. I actually had to sort properly on this one. So certainly, maybe Carol actually needs to have a talking to, perhaps. Maybe she's just neglectful to get to some of the calls that are ringing inbound to her. Obviously, that's maybe not the UC admin's level of responsibility, but perhaps definitely needs to be known. And then once again, I blitzed it out, the dormancy devices as well as the users as well. So I'll just dive into that just for a quick second, maybe the users, just to show you some of the sample search sets that I'm keying off of here for these. So within this ranking or grouping statistics style widget, I'm keying off of originating or terminating end users. So I'm looking at bidirectional traffic for the end users that actually have dormancy. So if I scroll down here, we do have a grouping filter section where I've actually put the max total call count on them of 0. So I've kind of hard coded that myself through the widget here so that I'm only going to bear fruit that has zero total calls. And if you have a laundry list of users like that, potentially may need to identify that internally. But from the search sets perspective, I'm keying off of bidirectional on the departments. I could most certainly, remove all of these departments and maybe just pick on 1 or 2 that I was maybe that I cared about, that I was more responsible for, let's say. But we can certainly, as I grabbed them all for this demo purpose, and then we can specify, obviously the time frame as well. If we need to make any exclusions, we can most certainly do that. But a lot of and this information for the dormancy, we have KBs and previous webinar videos on that information as well. So if that piques your interest, most certainly consult those, or definitely let Variphy support know, and we'll point you in the right direction. All right, I will slide down to one more UCM board. And this is pretty much the capacity utilization of my SIP routes. Same widget that I had, and I've demonstrated in other webinars here, but this is me kind of breaking them out individually away from that main UC admin board, where maybe we only care about the bandwidth usage and the usage on the trunks coming and going within the environment. Very easily we can see what the high watermark is here on this cube primary, which is looks like 13. That happened the half hour at 9 a.m. on September 29th. Same rules apply here. This is kind of my secondary or my cube DC. Looks like nothing's breaking 5 calls concurrently over multiple dates and times. We can and if there are anomalies, most certainly from the date legends here, we can certainly strike out any days that we want. So I think that one was 9/29. So if I want to strike that out, most certainly it will replot the line graph, but it will not affect the summarization total bars. All right, and I'm combining them both into another widget on the side here, just to kind of keep perspective on it. But once again, I knew I missed one. Okay, so I should be reflecting 30 in here, but I believe everyone kind of gets the gist of the capacity utilization within these widgets on these boards. So once again, it does come to kind of dealer's choice, if you will. Most certainly, myself personally, as I mentioned, I may want to go with a board that kind of looks like this if I'm a UC admin, that's got kind of all of that kit and caboodle in here all at once. But once again, it could be too busy for certain people, and maybe they only care about bits and pieces of this. Most certainly, we can have secondary boards for them that we share with them, or even turn on the permalinking that we do have the access to. So within the boards itself, just to kind of cover this again, for anyone who has forgotten or missed this, we can certainly turn on sharing to share it with other local users within the application. Here, I've shared my board here with Mike, just in case I lost power. But also, we can turn on public access to these boards as well, which is a read-only access to the board. We can turn on we can require a passphrase if we want to have a poor man's security on it. But once again, it is a read-only board. So I'll go ahead and copy that URL. Once again, as I'm sure most everyone has seen our permalinks. But this guy will take a second or two just to load up everything from my UCM admin board. And once it loads everything up, but you will see here, I mean, all modules have been stricken from this viewing capacity, but all the data content is there. But if we try to edit anything, all we can really do is play around with refresh or the appearance sake of the widget. And then once again, if anything is altered poorly for the viewing pleasures, if you will, of a permalink dashboard, most certainly we can just refresh the browser simply and it will snap back to its original form. Now, what I mean by that is, for instance, maybe I'm just a field worker that's in there working on something. I have access to a machine that's connected to a television that's broadcasting a board like this, and maybe I start poking around to look at some certain things, and maybe I just completely make it kind of illegible for everyone else that may be utilizing this maybe in a different area. Well, all somebody would need to do would be just to go ahead and refresh that browser tab. So I'll refresh that. It will snap back to its original form, as you can see, with current and update and refresh data. All right, so let this guy load for a second or two. Obviously, the more widgets you have on your board, the little extra time it'll take for it to refresh upon first loading of the board. But most certainly, they are running on their own individual interval refreshes. Mine, for this lab intensive purpose, I set out to an hour, but we can most certainly drop these down to 5 minutes, where they can always be kind of churning at least the most recent data, as UCM is not providing a live data feed to any third-party applications. So I believe I'm a little late on content with regards to where we are now with the webinar. So I do think I've covered a lot of information. So Mike, I'm going to kick the audio back to you for a minute, sir. Do we have any questions from the audience?
Hey, we have a couple of questions. First one that came in. Can you go over again the international widgets?
Okay.
Kind of looking at the how it was configured, like the search sets, and kind of go over what the X's were for.
Certainly. Great question. We'll take a look in here. So with this call statistic style widget here, now this is just cosmetic configuration stuff, but I am requesting that I want to see total call count and the total average call duration for it. Now the search sets is where the magic happens to actually identify the international calls. So most certainly we can use a couple different fields, probably a couple different variations of this, but I feel that the best way to identify them is to utilize what our outside line access dialing to an international number would be. Obviously, from the States, it would be maybe an access code and 011 and then country code and local and location digits dialed. Or we could have the an access code of an 8 or a 9. I try to put in multiples just in case someone is able to kind of hack the environment and doesn't need an access code to get out. So that's most certainly, even if the environment does have an access code, I still like to use the one without, just to cover both bases. And as you can see here, I don't need to be finite and exact with the digits. We can certainly use one of our conditional Boolean operators here. I'm utilizing the starts with, and these X's on the back. Good question there. These are single character wildcards. So this doesn't need to exactly match an international digit length, let's say, because let's be honest here, different countries, it could be all over the place. And then you throw in mobiles, we won't even cover that today. But utilizing this, we can certainly say an outbound call that started with 011 and then a handful of extra characters afterwards. We definitely know this is not going to be an internal dial. We definitely know it's not going to be a long distance national call within the US. So it's going to be international, or obviously an external looking number that is from is outbound for another country. Great question. Mike, we have another one?
One other question was regarding the announcement widget. I can say it was released with Verify Insight 12.15. So if you are interested in upgrading, go ahead, give us a shout. Support@verify.com, and we can, we'll gladly get you upgraded to the current version if you're interested in using the announcement widget.
Correct, exactly. And I'll just kind of dive into this one because I did not touch on it. Now, we do have a title option on it, but I kind of sandbag or hide that because I believe that the title really is going to be the message within it. I could most certainly say announcement of the day widget on this as a title and then still have my scrolling text. I can most certainly do that. Dealer's choice once again. We do have a couple options from this this newer style of widget. We can make it kind of the message source, let's say, we can make it widget based where the admin or whomever's creating their dashboard can create and input their own message, or we have the availability to actually take an application built message where actually this application, the widget message would actually roll down to all boards that are using application as the message source. So if there's 10 dashboards that are out there being used within the environment, and we want to push out an announcement to them, provided they have an announcement of the day widget, they would inherit this message coming from the application source. But once again, we can easily override that. I'm using a 12.5 upgrade schedule for this Friday evening. We can play around with the scrolling speeds, or we can make it static, where it does not wrap and it is there staring you right in the face. you can play with the font and the appearance sake and all that good stuff. But yeah, as Mike said, if you do not have that capability, I do believe that came in, what was it, 12.1, 12.15, 12.16, something along those lines? Yep. Yeah, okay. And obviously we are demonstrating off of our brand new 12.2 EFT1 that is going to be GA in the next couple of weeks. So if you do have any preference of looking and utilizing some of this newer methodology that we have and the newer widgets, new bells and whistles, we'll certainly reach out to Variphy support. Or you could simply, where I have our website, or you can most certainly visit our website and then actually request a beta access to us, beta access to the 12.2 release. So also, I do want to thank everyone, and I do want to close with just stating that, variphy.com/company/webinars, or is visiting the page variphy.com. We have our webinar section, so if you're missing any content, we certainly record all of these webinars. All of the past recordings are in here based off of module style and type. So most certainly feel free to frequent these and utilize these, as well as our knowledge base articles. And I'm going to plug it one last time. As you can see here in the banner, we do have our house party at Tuesday, October 27th, with a whole lot of content and a lot of fun prizes and good times and some success stories. So please feel free and register now at variphy.com/party. Mike, I will toss the ball back to you, sir, and you can go ahead for the moment we've all been waiting for.
Hang on, not yet. We have one final question. If you can share your screen, can you show where you go to create? I came in just now. Can you go to show where you go to create the message or the announcement widget?
Most certainly, correct. I should have spoken of that. So if we go to the settings gear in the upper right here, it is the second option underneath the system section. It will be application settings. And then from within here,
I'm sorry, also the widget type too. Right, like when you're creating the widget, can you show which one you're selecting and get the announcement?
Correct. Okay, I'll do this in reverse order then. Yes. So from the system section, underneath system application settings, we'll be able to see within here our announcement message. So we can most certainly pre-populate what the system announcement message would be from the application as a whole. And then to get to adding an announcement of the day widget onto your board, I'll just segue here and use this one. It would be to add a new widget. Now we have the two normal features of UCM call analytics and UCCX, but there's one just above now that we see, and it is the application, and it is the announcement of the day widget. So that is how you would be able to solidify that. It took me a second or two to find it when we even first released it in my own lab, because it's tucked up above, obviously alphabetical. I was expecting it to be lower in the list, but most certainly it is in there in 12.15 or greater. So good questions all. Mike, any other remaining questions?
Perfect. I think that's it. Unless anybody has any questions, go ahead, enter it now. I'll see it come through. But if not, yeah, we can wrap it up. And
okay, I will stop sharing. Kick the wheel back over to you.
Presenter and share my screen. All right. We did the Q&A. We already covered all of that, so great job on that. I guess, yeah, next up would be the winner of today's Amazon gift card. So the winner of the gift card is, drumroll please, Jim Evans Jr. Congratulations.
Woo!
We'll have your account manager reach out to you with the gift card. Wrapping up, don't forget to sign up for our house party, $5,000 in prizes, live demos, Q&A, product deep dives. I want to thank everyone for attending today's webinar. We do live webinars every Wednesday. Our next webinar is on October 21st. It'll be Matt and Vic will go over CDR alerts and using the configurable device lists. Thank you everyone again for attending, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you all. Take care.